Adam and I have been doing a lot of reporting on this subject since for the last couple of years, and so we're going to be playing, and we're radio reporters, so we're going to be playing clips of some of the reporting that we've done throughout this talk, and we hope that it will be the most entertaining, utterly depressing 45 minutes of this conference. So that's what we're going for.
Right. But before we get to the big picture, to the big banks and these AIG bonuses and Tim Geithner's new plan, which he's announcing right now as we speak, to save the world once again, when Alex and I think about the global economy, we think of this guy who we met about a year ago. He's a guy named Clarence Nathan. He lives in Queens, New York.
And he is not the guy who caused the crisis by any, don't want you thinking that Clarence is responsible for all of your woes, but he sort of epitomizes what went wrong. We think of him as sort of like the epitome of what went on here.
And we should say, he's a lovely guy. He was very generous and speaking rather candidly to us. And one of the things he told us is he has 3 part-time jobs, not very steady jobs, and he says his income's around $45,000 a year. A few years ago, he got into some trouble, he got into some debt, so he went into a mortgage broker's office to take out a loan on his house. The mortgage broker didn't ask for any documentation, didn't really ask him any questions about his personal details, and Clarence walked out with a very big loan.
Call it 540 for round figures.
You basically borrowed $540,000 from the bank, and they didn't check your income.
Right. It's a no-income verification loan. They don't call me up and say, you know, how much money? They don't do that. I mean, it's almost like you pass a guy in the street and you say, hey, you lend me $540,000? He said, well, what do you do? I got a job. Okay. I mean, it seems as if it's that casual, even though there are a lot of papers that get filled out and stuff flies all over with the faxes and the emails and all like that. Essentially, that's the process.
Would you have loaned you the money?
I wouldn't have loaned me the money, and nobody that I know would have loaned me the money. I mean, I know guys, criminals that wouldn't lend me that money, and they break the kneecaps. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why the bank did it. I'm serious. I mean, $540,000, the person with bad credit. Nobody came and told me.
All right, so it turns out that Clarence's friends, relatives, acquaintances in shadowy criminal contexts would have been right not to lend him the money because when we talked to him, he was going through foreclosure. He was at a foreclosure conference, and he hadn't made a payment in, I think, about a year.
Yeah, and we hear this story in the media a lot, some poor person or some struggling person getting foreclosed on. And the standard media story is often something like this poor victim of a greedy mortgage banker. Or if you watch CNBC or Fox or read the Wall Street Journal, it's some innocent mortgage banker being duped by some mischievous home buyer. And I'm sure there are both cases. There's, you know, out-and-out fraud and criminality. But Clarence's case, to us, was much more typical and much more nuanced and much more common.
Nobody came and told me a lie and told me a story and said, oh, just close your eyes and all your problems will go away. That wasn't the situation. The situation was that I needed the money, and I'm not trying to absolve myself of it. I had a situation and I thought that I could do this and then get out of it within 6 to 9 months. The 6 to 9 month plan didn't work, so I'm stuck. If somebody had told me you couldn't borrow the money, I probably would have had to do something else more drastic and dramatic and not be in this situation now. The bank made an imprudent loan. I made an imprudent loan. So the bank and I are partners in this deal.
So this imprudent partnership, this is the center of sort of all the problems that we're facing right now. And it's brand new. For most of history, bankers wouldn't have lent Clarence the money either. You know, in fact, they stayed as far away as from people like Clarence as they could. You know, people with part-time employment and unpaid debts in their past. And then somewhere, starting in the beginning of the aughts, everything flipped on its head. And bankers started entering into partnerships with people like Clarence that they'd never done before, loaning them $500,000 without even checking to see if they had income to pay it back. And so that's what Adam and I went to sort of try to figure out. What happened?